Hello everybody, I hope you are doing fine like always, and it's good to have you watching The Thesis. Yes, we are back with another edition of this lovely program. We've got lovely feedback as well from many of you, our viewers from around Goa and across the globe as well. On CCR TV, we'll always try to make sure we give you some great programs, right, from music, entertainment, information, and as we take you through The Thesis program, that kind of dwells into somebody who's completed their thesis, a doctorate, and awarded the PhD degree or a doctorate degree in any field. Today, I have a very special guest, and we move on to science this time. And science is such a wide and a vast field. There are so many things you can do. And I think being in Goa, there's lots and lots of opportunity. On this edition of The Thesis, it's my pleasure and privilege to have with me in the studios today, Dr. Flory, Saldanha Pereira. Welcome to the studios, and thank you so much for being part of this program.
Thanks for having me over.
Yes. Dr. Flory, if you could tell our viewers first and foremost, of course, the title of your thesis, you've done your microbiology and then your love for microorganisms as such.
That's right. Yeah, so actually I did my PhD in biotechnology.
Okay.
And the title of my thesis is Metal Tolerance in Heterotrophic Bacteria from the salt pans of Ribandar in Goa.
All right.
Yes.
So you used to stay somewhere close by, or you had to? I mean, did you take up somebody's, a little hut around the salt pans?
No, actually, I had quite a tough time because I was also working full time.
All right.
And while I was working, I decided to complete my PhD. Actually, it has been my dream to do my PhD for many, many years. But somehow, initially, when I was doing a little bit of research work at the Goa University, I did not register at that time. And then, of course, it was my family, my kids were born, and then I decided to do my PhD. And I started my PhD in 2007. And I was married, and I had 2 little children.
Okay.
And it was really tough because...
And plus you were working.
Yes, plus I was working.
Yeah. But I think, for ladies or for a woman, it's always like that, because after you finish your graduation, your postgrad, and then probably you start working or you have a family, and then that PhD thing kind of is there at the back of your mind. Yeah. And then till finally you say, okay, you settle down the kids, and then you kind of get into completing it.
Very true. So, yeah, I had to make a lot of sacrifices. It was not easy because I was living in Vasco. I was working at Ponda, and the Goa University is nearly 40 kilometers away.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was travel from one end, from the south to the north, and back to the South Goa.
So like a nice triangular,
yes, it was
distance it was for you. And then you add Ribandar to that as well.
Yes, add Ribandar to that, true.
Probably a quadrilateral.
True, very true.
Yes. So your love for science, when did it start? We'll kind of take a little rewind in your life. Tell me about, your birthplace or your school. What was that got you?
Okay. I was born in West Bengal, in Kharagpur.
Oh.
And my father's working for the railways. And after I was born, he was transferred to Nagpur. So we shifted soon after I was born to Nagpur, and I started my schooling at St. Joseph's Convent in Nagpur. And over there, of course, we had some really good teachers. And I actually did not know at that time whether I loved English more or history more. It kept varying with the teachers.
With the teachers, yes.
Yeah. So we had a very good history teacher, Miss Mari Montero, and we had a very good English. She was teaching English as well, and then we also had very good science teachers. So I just loved science from the beginning.
Any teacher that you remember in Nagpur?
Maybe? There was a teacher called Rajeshwari Mudliyar. She used to teach us as well. A very good teacher. And I think all these teachers had a big influence on my life. Yeah.
All right. So, Flory, tell us about your life. when you were born. We do a little rewind, where you were born and how, what was the, the science, the bug that kind of hit you, when and where?
Okay, so I was born in West Bengal, in Kharagpur. My father used to work for the railways, Southeastern Railways in Kharagpur. And soon after I was born, he was transferred to Nagpur. So we shifted from Kharagpur to Nagpur.
You all went by train, obviously.
Yeah, yes, we did. My dad used to get free first class passes.
Oh.
Yeah, so we used to get.
So was he also the engine driver?
No, he wasn't the engine driver. He used to work for stores.
All right.
So
okay.
he was in charge of the stores. And yeah, we used to get 3 first class passes. So we used to look forward to those trips to Goa also at least once a year.
I see.
And in Nagpur, I studied up till the 8th standard at St. Joseph's Convent in Nagpur. And over there, we had really good teachers. So a lot of credit goes to my teachers because my love for actually I couldn't make up my mind whether I liked English more, or I liked history more, or I liked science more.
Oh, science came last that time?
No, it wasn't actually that way. I used to love science because I found it very practical and it was something I could relate to. And I liked history at that time because the teacher was really good. She used to teach us history. She used to actually tell it to us like a story. Like, tell us like Shivaji came and we would all, be very engrossed in whatever she told us. And her name was Mari Montero. And then the science I liked, as I told you, I could relate to a lot of stuff. Like I found it very practical. And then we had a very good teacher as well, Miss Rajeshwari Mudliar. So really like these teachers, and I think that was what actually
influenced you a little bit. But me. If I still want to rewind a little bit more and say at home, let's go to your mum.
Yeah.
She's 87, you said.
Yeah,
yes.
My mom's 87.
Right now, yes. So I'm sure she must also have been reading storybooks to you.
Yes, in fact, she would also take up tuitions for the students. They would come in the evening and she would sit and teach all the other children around. And I think that is what probably, studies was a very vital, important thing in our home. In fact, I recall I used to be very good at sports as well. And there used to be a lot of, these inter-school competitions and all. And in one particular, 1 year, we were having this competition among many schools, and I was tiny, and I raced in the 100 meters and I defeated children who were much bigger than me. And the organizers, they came forward and they asked my dad whether, they could take me for training for nationals. And my dad said, no, she has to concentrate on her studies. At that time, of course, I was really upset about it. But in the long run, I realized how important it is to study also. Of course, I did not know how I would have ended up. But I'm quite happy with what I'm doing, so I don't have no regrets that I did not go into sports as such.
If you had gone in, then probably by now you would be running faster than the train.
I'm not really sure about that. Yeah, but yes, and then after that, we came to Goa when my dad retired. And that was in the 9th standard. I shifted to Goa and joined Lutz Convent in Saligaon because my parents are from Saligaon. My dad's from Saligaon, my mom's from Asnara. So I started staying in Goa. At that time, my mom accompanied me to Goa actually. And my dad was still in Nagpur. Actually, the reason I came to Goa was because my sister had got married and she was actually lonely. So they like, okay, let's, you go and keep her company. So I came in the 9th standard and I stayed initially with my aunt in Saligaon and with my sister, of course, when she was married in Sukur in Porvory. And I used to commute by bus from Porvory to Saligaon. Yeah, and 2 years in...
this would be in the mid-80s, I think.
Yes, I finished my SSC in 83. So I passed from Lutz Convent, and from there I went on to do my higher secondary at St. Xavier's in Mapsa. So I, of course, took science because I was very good at science. And of course, also I think the teachers also, the science teacher was better
Better.
than the history teacher. So I actually just got hooked onto science permanently. And then in Xavier's 11th and 12th, it was science. And then actually, the most obvious thing is then why don't you go for the professional courses? But then I did not have a domicile also, because you needed 5 years and I had only 4 years. So then later on I joined for BSc and I finished my BSc and in microbiology.
Yeah.
And then
I believe you topped that year.
I stood second in BSc. And MSc I topped. Yeah. So after BSc, of course, Xavier's was the only college having BSc, and there were only 9 seats at Goa University at that time. So even though I stood second, I was like 100% sure because I was among the first 9. So there was no way that I wasn't getting for MSc. But then initially I was thinking of going for my post-graduation to the US because my brother was there and he told me, come and do your master's over here. And I said, okay. And he sent me an invitation letter. He was also young. He's just 4 years elder to me. And I was also young. And I took my invitation letter and went to get my visa to the Bombay office. And they were like, where are the other documents? I'm like, what other documents? And yes, then of course I was refused. And then I continued with my post-graduation the following year. So I joined microbiology. And I was the gold medalist in my batch.
Super.
Yeah. And then after that, I joined the university. There was a project which was by the government of Goa, Department of Science and Technology, on studies on improving garbage disposal systems in Goa using microorganisms. So I always liked, to do practical work and research and things like that.
How were the facilities at that time in the university and, maybe outside as well?
They were not too bad, actually. Somehow we managed with whatever we had.
All right.
I mean, I think even though now there are so many additional facilities which are there, of course we struggled for a couple of things. Like we had to go to NIO for some analysis, special analysis and things like that. So we went to some other institutes and got our work.
That also must have been a nice experience for you, to going to. Yes.
It was, and people allowed us to do it. It was like nobody refused when a researcher went and requested. So people helped and we did it. And not only that, even some government institutes and this and that here and there, we used to go and somehow get our things done. And we managed to do our research work. So I worked for 3 years on that project, on studies under Dr. Joe D'Souza. And we submitted that report to the Goa government on how they could improve the garbage disposal systems. I don't think anything was done.
Nothing happened.
Report. I think it just got shelved.
Any few tips that you can share with our viewers, about garbage disposal? Maybe they can. I mean, there are many of you. It's available online, but maybe since you've done your study in that as well.
Yes, actually, at that time, I actually used to go in the garbage collection truck from one bin to another bin. So the entire Panjim, all the bins from Panjim were mapped. What are the type of garbage which was going into the different bins was actually calculated, and we had shown them that there was a lot of biodegradable waste which was there, and if it was segregated properly, then your problem could easily be sorted out. And we also had isolated some microorganisms which were accelerating the disposal of the degradation of the waste. But nobody made use of that. It was a project which was taken, the report was there, it was shelved. They could have actually, given us the space and the facilities to use whatever we had done, and we could have actually worked with our microbes, and probably we wouldn't end up with the mess which we are in now.
Right.
So because it was so many years back that it was done. And second thing, most important thing is we did it for free. Now you have all these companies coming in charging
yes.
such a lot, and then you still don't have any solution to the
not
problem.
at all, yeah.
So yes, that was what we had done. And further, after that project, I shifted to NIO, and I worked on another project over there where the project's name was Coastal Ocean Monitoring and Prediction Systems. So they used to monitor the waters along the coastal areas.
Okay.
And
so at that time you went in the Navy boat or something?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go in one of the small boats. Okay. And we went sampling to Dahanu and along the coast, and it was a really wonderful experience. It was a little funny also, because I remember when we went, there was a storm, and at that time I had no idea about boats, and also one of my friends and me, two of us were there on that trip together. And we thought that if we went and climbed up on the mast, and if the boat toppled, we would
be safe.
And until the captain came and told us, "What are you doing up there? There's a storm. If it topples, you'll be right below." So that was funny. And of course, it was so bad. All the glassware was shaking. Things fell down. A lot of stuff broke. Yeah. But it was a very good experience. I really enjoyed that.
Wonderful. So, yeah, we've got our guest who started off her journey studying. Of course, she went in the train, she went in a garbage truck, she's gone into a nice boat around. So, now let's go and check out further. And as we do that, in case you have your friends or family who would like to be part of this show as well, do get in touch with us on CCR TV. You can follow us online on YouTube as well, and on the channel. The phone numbers are listed as well on our program. So let's go back to Dr. Flory now. So, Doctor, now you decided to do your PhD. So a good 18 years post your I think it's everybody. It's the same story with everyone. So tell me how you thought of your topic, this topic of yours.
Okay, so actually, as I told you, PhD was always there at the back of my mind, because one thing, like, somehow I think the thirst for doing something, gaining knowledge has always been there. And I decided to do my PhD. Initially, I was thinking of doing it in the Department of Microbiology. But then I also... at that time, we were in two minds. We were supposed to be migrating initially when I joined. And we actually had applied to Canada for migration in 2003 or 4, something like that, during that time, 3. And at that time, I was thinking of doing my PhD, and I thought, okay, let me do my PhD on a topic which will find me a better
better prospects to
stepping stone, be a better stepping stone for the future. So I wanted something applicative. So that is why I decided to go with biotechnology and go in for something which would find more application. But then later on, when I got my permanent job over here, I said, okay, no, I'm settled now. I don't think I want to go anywhere else, because I have a good job. And initially I was on lecture basis, and I was really, going from one place to the other, teaching in Khandola College, teaching at PES College. So it was, I was like really busy going from one place to the other, and I was getting frustrated because I did not have a permanent post at that time. But then once I got a permanent post, of course my husband had a good job at Goa Shipyard. So that was not the problem, but somehow I just could not, find that satisfaction until I was permanent. And then once I got permanent, and already I had decided to go with biotechnology because of application. And the reason I selected this particular topic is, at that time, iron ore mining was always in the news, and regarding all the iron ore which was getting washed down with the rain into the fields and affecting everybody. So that is what actually triggered the thought in my mind that I should work on something related to iron ore. And another
how
thing
it affects the microorganisms.
Yes, microorganism. And the second thing which helped me to select my topic was the salt. In Goa, we eat this local salt.
Yeah.
So all that, the salt pans are just adjacent to the Mandovi estuary. And a lot of these barges transport iron ore in the estuary. So I actually wanted to see what was happening to the water which is coming into the salt pans, because it's going to evaporate and the metals will get concentrated, or what exactly is happening. So that is the reason I selected that particular topic.
So you had to do a lot of thinking and before you decided on your topic, because it's not easy. You need to find something that nobody has worked on, right? So
yes, fortunately for me, while I was thinking this, I also had my guide. I had decided to go with Dr. Savita Kerkar from Department of Biotechnology. And she helped me a lot in making up my mind also about what I should be working. And she also has her expertise in the salt pans. So because she is good, she was good in that particular field.
So for somebody who's deciding on a topic for PhD or for the project, so a guide also plays a vital role
very important, because finally, when whatever you select, the guide should be having a thorough knowledge about that. Okay, so when you're selecting your guide, it's very important to see that they have some background or some basics which they have, or they worked on that particular topic before you decide to go with that particular guide. Because otherwise, if it's like, that will be like the blind leading the blind. Both are experimenting. Of course, it does not mean that you won't find anything, but it will be a much more difficult and arduous task to finish your PhD, because you will actually be experimenting.
But and how easy or difficult was it to find a guide, the right guide for you? You needed to brainstorm and.
As I said, it's very important to find the right guide. So one thing is the rapport between the guide and the person who's going to do the PhD. The person should have that understanding, the easygoing nature, which will allow you, give you the freedom to do your PhD at your pace, as well as she should be
able to guide
you and did not delay the PhD, because you don't want to take it very easy. You want to finish in that time frame. So you can get a fair idea of who would be a good guide based on the guide's publications also. So if you look at the publication history and you see that a particular professor has got a number of publications, obviously she has done a lot of work in that particular field. And based on her publications, you go through the publication history and see what are the different topics which she has written on, and you can get a fairly good idea on what are the subjects which you can also venture into, or what are the topics which you can venture into. So that really helps.
All right. So for somebody to finish a PhD, you decide, and you get like 4 years to complete your PhD around. That's the time that you have. Now, of course, you've selected your guide, you have your topic. Tell us, for you personally, what were the hardships on this? I know you didn't take up a place next to the salt pan, but you were shuttling between 3 different locations in Goa.
Yeah, so very true. Yeah, I had a tough time, obviously, because I live in Vasco. So I used to drive to college, and I did not get leave to do my PhD. So I was doing a part-time PhD. So I would teach, I would go in the morning, be in college from 9 to almost 5, 4:35. I would leave from college at 4:35, go to the university. There were days when I just washed my glassware and went home. Then the next day went and sterilized the glassware. The third day prepared the media. The fourth day prepared my plates. And an experiment which normally takes 1 day, I would take 7 days to finish that particular experiment. And of course, sometimes it's really frustrating, and I was thinking, am I ever going to finish my PhD at this rate? But somehow, I would work late in the evenings. I had the support of my family. My husband supported me quite a bit. We had a maid to look after the kids at home. And but still it was very tiring, because traveling, it was a long distance, and I was on my feet all the time as a teacher, as well as for my practical work. So then I requested my guide. I asked her for permission if I could work at NCOR, National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research. So I met the director of NCOR at that time, Dr. Rasik Ravindran, and I asked his permission. I told him about the hardships I was facing, and he saw to it probably that I was, very adamant on doing my work, somehow finishing it up. So he was very supportive, and he said, of course, I would never deny anyone the opportunity to work in the lab. So I will give you the permission. You go ahead, work in our labs, work till whatever time you want. And I will ask them, I would requisition for the key, and I would finish my work even till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then go home after that at night, late nights. And I had to cross the Sada jail at that time, and I would be really frightened at times in the night. So I would keep my mobile on and tell my husband, okay, I'm leaving, you talk to me till I reach home. So that's how we managed, yes.
That's nice. So doctor, tell us about the findings of your research that you did.
Okay. So actually, at the end of my thesis, my work, what I found was that we had quite a high content of iron and manganese, and a lot of it was going into the salt pans as well. And it was more concentrated during the salt making season, obviously, because
during the summers,
when you're evaporating the salt. And we studied something called as the geoaccumulation index, and we found that a lot of it was there in the soil as well as in the salt, and which was not found in the pristine areas which were away from the salt pans. Yeah, but then also we found that there were a lot of metal tolerant bacteria which are found in the salt pans. These are harmless bacteria, and they play a role in counteracting the toxicity of the metal. So they can convert the metal to on slightly non-toxic form. And so the salt, of course, is safe to have.
Safe to have, yeah.
And the bacteria which we have isolated from these salt pans, they find application also in the rivers, the metal pollution which is coming into the rivers. So you could use these metal tolerant bacteria to bioremediate the waters as well as the mining areas. And also, since they are salt tolerant, because they are from the salt
pans,
so these bacteria can also be used in the Kazan lands and all, wherever there is excess salinity. So it would definitely be beneficial also to grow the crops.
The crops, yes.
Yes. So that was the finding which I found was which can be put into use.
Put into use, yes. Yeah, but after you do your studies, now you have studied on this. Is there anybody who does, uses your work? Hopefully, somebody will watch this and maybe say, get in touch with you and say,
Yes, another student has joined, wherein they are also seeing the applications of these particular bacteria. And as I told you, coincidentally, most of Dr. Savita's students are working on salt pans and microbes from there. So they have actually checked how these microorganisms can be used to grow rice in the paddy fields and all, how they can be used to enhance the as biofertilizers, the fertility of the soil. And also, I myself have been using these microorganisms with my BSc and MSc students. And I've been doing a little bit of work. I've been continuing with the same microbes, and I am also doing work on how these microorganisms can be used for bioremediation, not only for agriculture or for iron and manganese, but they find many other applications also as enzyme producers and such. So yes, the work continues.
Fantastic. Would you say it's easier to complete all your studies, your PhD, and then decide, okay, chalo, now I want to have a family? Or does having a support system at home, as a family, you have kids and all, there's a lot of work that goes in that as well. So what would you say to somebody who's probably finished his post-graduation and says, okay, should I complete and do my PhD, or should I, start my family?
Actually, there isn't one simple solution for everything. It all depends on, suppose you do decide to finish your PhD and then, start a family. It may be that you've, you're overage. Sometimes you don't know how long it's going to take before you finish your PhD. It takes up to 7 years also sometimes to finish your PhD. So by that time, if you started at 23, you may be 30. At that time, it's too late, probably. I don't know. Some people do not want to get married so late and start a family so late. And if you're married, it all depends on how much of support you get from your family as well. So if you have a supportive family, and I think as women, we all have to,
compromise.
Yes. So we have to
compromise, balance juggle
between family and children and everything. But somehow I think God has made us strong, and I don't think that any woman will not be able to do the things which we have done, because it's just a matter of how adamant, how convinced, how much of conviction you have to do a particular thing. If you want to do something, you will do it somehow or the other.
Right.
Yeah. So, as I told you, I would, even when I was answering my SET exam, my kids were small, and I would, they were 1 year old, and I had to put them to sleep in the night. And after they went off to sleep, I would sit down and start studying, because I just wanted to finish
get done with it.
the exam. So if you want to do something in life, it's just that you just have to focus on what you want to do, and I think you can get it done.
Fantastic. That's a very lovely message that you've given to all our viewers, and I think if you still have that little bug where you want to keep studying, so it's a lovely message from her. Thank you so much for sharing your views and telling us about your thesis as well, and hope to see you someday again as well.
Thanks a lot.
Yes,
Thank you.
my
Thanks
pleasure
for
having
having
you.
me here.
My pleasure indeed. So we'll see you all someday somewhere on CCR TV on the Thesis. So till then, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.